The so-called Black Americans have forgotten their racist and violent past that they had with so-called America. Now, I listened to a speech that Maxine Waters had given, and she was calling for the harassment of Trump supporters and Trump administrators. She was actually calling for Trump administrators and supporters to be publicly harassed and stalked, which could eventually lead to violence. See, what Black Americans fail to realize is that there is a sleeping giant here that's been sleeping for a very long time. Black Americans had a taste or a dose of the sleeping giant that was somewhat awakening. That was when we heard of all of these so-called police shootings of unarmed blacks, male and female. And Black Americans did nothing to protect or defend themselves because they felt helpless against law enforcement. Many of them said they had guns. We can't compete, but yet they get upset when we remind them that Black Americans are constantly being killed at the hands of other Black Americans. So Black Americans felt hopeless when police was gunning down unarmed civilians. And they were protesting and laying in the ground and marching saying, "Hands up, don't shoot." And they were crying and saying, "Stop killing us." But yet they protest and they keep poking at that bear, knowing that they have no power. And what little power they have is quickly dwindling because Black Americans are so divided amongst themselves. Now, I want to play a clip of a brief synopsis of what's been going on. And when I see the things, when I sit back and watch and observe everything that's taking place and how blacks have playing the role now, the same role that the KKK played back in the 60s against blacks, Black Americans now are playing that same game, teaming up with the Democrats, which I think Black Americans forgot or never knew that the Democrats are the ones that created and formed the KKK. Have you forgotten the cross burnings? Have you forgotten the lynching, the public lynchings? Have you forgotten that the same thing that Maxine Waters was calling for was the same games and tricks that were played against the so-called Black Americans back during the Civil Rights Movement? So now blacks have teamed up with the KKK. There was an article, and I did a video about this in the past, where the KKK had called for Black Americans to unite with them against the illegal immigrants. They wanted blacks and Jews to join forces with them because they knew that a house divided within itself won't stand. And the battle has always been black and white here in America. But now America's face is changing. And it's unfortunately because of the fact many Black Americans are so blind and asleep to the point where you don't realize that when you protest and march for illegal immigration and you're saying let them in, keep in mind when they come in, of course, you're going to have celebrities that's out there protesting and they seem like they're on your side and you feel good because you're out there protesting and rubbing elbows with celebrities. But keep in mind, these celebrities are wealthy and they don't live in your community. They don't have to deal with what you deal with in your communities. So when they're done protesting, they go back behind their gated communities. Whereas those protesters, MS-13 and all those other traffickers that's coming through here, guess where they will end up? Just like these so-called sanctuary cities. They will end up right in the black community. And then you are now competing with illegal immigrants. And guess who's going to get your share of the benefits that your parents worked for and paid taxes for? They're going to get it. And that's why, and keep in mind too, Maxine Waters got up and she started calling for them to do the same thing that the white supremacists did back in the day to black Americans. Now she's calling for her followers, the Democrats, to do the same thing to Trump supporters and administrators, right? But Maxine Waters has never done that for blacks that have been killed by police. No one had ever protested that hard. No one has ever told any political figures to be abused and stalked in public. But she's doing that for the illegal immigrants because she hates Trump and because Hillary Clinton lost the election. Now I'm going to play something. It's too bad that you guys can't see the visuals on this. But I want you to just listen to what's going on in this video. Check it out.
A few years ago, ideas that we talked about were thought to be fringe ideas, radical ideas, extremist ideas. Those ideas are now mainstream.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
What's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women?
One way you get rid of Trump is a crashing economy, so please bring on the recession.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Now, you've heard that. Now, these are the same things that were done against black Americans in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement. And I think black Americans forgot when the blacks were watered down, dogs sicked on them. You know, they were not allowed to go into certain restaurants and they were chased out of there. They were actually beaten and lynched and killed for going inside a restaurant. Couldn't even use the bathroom or drink out of the same water fountain. So now black Americans teamed up with the KKK, the inventors and creators of the KKK, against the Republicans, against Donald Trump and those that support Donald Trump. Black Americans forgot. And keep in mind, black Americans, you get nothing out of this. You're wasting all of your time and your energy with the Democratic Party, the Democrat Party, and you get nothing out of it. You voted Barack Obama into office, and in the 8 years that he was president, you got nothing out of it. Everything was done for gays and women and other people, but black Americans were being killed in the streets during the Obama administration, and no one stepped up to help you, regardless of how much protesting and crying and laying in the street that you've done. No one heard your call, and no one did what Maxine Waters has done. So black Americans have forgotten their past. They have forgotten the civil rights movement. And now they're now sitting in the seat of the same oppressors that oppressed their ancestors in the way that their ancestors oppressed you. It's getting dirty. It's getting very dirty to the point where people cannot have their own individual personal opinions. If you don't think like the mob crowd, then the mob crowd is coming after you. And me, myself, I'm ready. I'm prepared. And I could not go through what that woman went through at the Red Hen restaurant. And this is my thought on that. Even when it comes to Time magazine, these restaurants, all of the Republicans and those that hold the same views or similar views that Donald Trump do, stop supporting these businesses. Withdraw your dollars. Don't support them. It makes no sense for me to have to support someone that don't support me, that's going to harass me for coming inside your restaurant just to eat. I can't eat in peace. And Maxine Waters saying, like, look, if you see them at the gas station, if you see them in the supermarket, you guys band together and harass them. That's the same thing that happened to black Americans during the civil rights movement. And it was created by the Democrat Party, just like this is being created and instructed by the Democrat Party. It's interesting, isn't it? And another thing with that tax reform, see, a lot of y'all are repeating talking points of the Democrats because that tax cut, that was extra money that was going into their pockets. Now it's not going into their pockets, and they're angry, they're mad, they're upset. It's now in your paycheck. And the Democrat Party wants to take that little bit away from you. So just think if they hike up the taxes like they're calling for. Nancy Pelosi, right? Just think if they hike up those taxes, that means that's less money in your paycheck. So when you look at your paycheck and you see all of the deductions, and then you're going to see a tax hike, that's the Democrats. And that's what they're upset about. So what we see now is a public lynching. The same thing that happened back in the civil rights movement. Cross burnings. I would not doubt if they start burning crosses again in front of certain people's homes, Republicans or people that follow Trump. And if you, as an individual person, black people, choose to think for yourself and think outside of the box, guess what? You're now the enemy and you're targeted. And you have a lot of black Americans that's afraid to be themselves, to think for themselves. And they're allowing the lynch mob, the new era of the KKK, to control them. And you're sitting there watching people being publicly lynched, and you're supporting that. What happened to black Americans of the past? But yet you cry out racism and discrimination. You cry out about how your rights are being taken away from you. And your cry had not began with Trump. It's always been. And if there's anyone that's trying to help your cause, and it has helped your cause, is Donald Trump. Whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not. But black Americans have joined forces with the KKK, and you have forgotten your past. And you may ask, well, how did I join forces with the KKK? Well, it was created and established by the Democrats. And now you support them. You see clearly with your eyes what's happening. But because of the fact that you are under that witchcraft spell, you cannot see what's going on with you. And you're destroying yourselves. They're using you as a pawn to destroy yourselves and your own family. Don't you think they've done enough when they tried to population reduction? Think of all of, like in your waters, think of what's been done over in Detroit or over in Michigan with that water problem. See, a lot of things like that happened in the black community before Trump came on the scene. That actually happened under the Obama administration. But yet you never made them responsible for your condition. but you support, protest, and help everyone else but yourself. And I mentioned in the last video where they actually raised over $20 million for traffickers. You think that you're helping those immigrants, but you're helping the traffickers. See, and there's an article I placed on my blog page, my WordPress page, and I might make a video about that, where you had 3 or 4 of the MS-13 gangs beat this little girl that was trafficked, that was brought through by sex trafficking, right? They're all illegal aliens, but they beat her to death with a bat, but no one's talking about that. See, black Americans have joined forces with the KKK. You've already been divided among yourselves. You're even more divided among yourselves. So you're out there being used as a pawn, poking at the bear, knowing that you have no backing. Black Americans have no backing at all. You're not thinking. You're out there poking the bear, talking about racism, talking about going out there, and they would end up using you as an example. There's a female political figure in Atlanta that just got done doing something, and they, put it in the papers, and I was thinking to myself, she might end up being the one that would be the example, because she's obstructing justice. So she might end up being the one, being the sacrificial lamb. Black Americans have always been the sacrificial lamb, and you continue to allow yourself to be sacrificed. Not for righteousness, but for unrighteousness. So that's all I got to say. There's more I could say, but it's just interesting just sitting back, watching and observing what's going on. Maxine Waters inciting riots, and they're calling for her to resign. And you have blind blacks that's supporting her, that's jumping on that bandwagon because it makes it look like she's powerful and she's strong. But you or her may end up being the sacrificial lamb. See, they may not. And another thing, and I keep saying this in different videos where you keep comparing yourself with white people, saying, well, white people do it too. In other words, if they can do it, I should be able to do it. Well, the difference is your ancestors brought here in chains, allegedly, right? So regardless of how much you think you're equal with them, you're not. See, you're so busy fighting against each other, destroying each other, turning on each other, and then you team up with the KKK. Of course, yeah, you're not wearing white sheets over your head. Nowadays, they're just wearing hoodies. Whenever they do a crime, when a lot of black Americans do crimes, what do? They put a hoodie on their head, a dark hoodie, right? And they do their crime. And they ask, well, what's the description? Well, he was wearing a hoodie, right? So that's no different than the KKK. The only difference is it's the Democrats that you ride and die for, die hard. And you get nothing in return. Nothing comes to the black community but heartache and death. And that's sad. So maybe you should start rethinking where you are in life, your status, your belief system. Maybe it's time for you to rethink that and leave that Democrat party. Stop voting for them and look at what's actually being done on the side that you claim to disagree with. You're actually being helped by the Trump administration, but yet you're so far under that spell that you can't see it. It's not about Trump. It's about what he's able to do and not do while being president. See, but you can't see that. So black Americans have forgotten about their past. It's easy for you to quote people of the past. It's easy for you to scream out racism and discrimination and no justice, no peace, and no justice, no sleep, or whatever Maxine Waters was saying. It's easy for you to say that, but at the end of the day, you're going back home to the ghetto, and you're welcoming illegal immigrants to the ghetto with you to fight for the very few crumbs that you have on the bottom. See, so you really can't even see what you're doing to yourselves. I can't even blame the white man, but I blame you. Now, there's a chance that YouTube might remove this video. If they do, you can always find it on Spreaker. If you have Spreaker, then go right to Spreaker and follow me on Spreaker. As a matter of fact, you can sign up for Spreaker for free. And if you want more space, of course, you got to pay for it like I am. But if you want the free version of Spreaker, you can get that for free and subscribe to me on Spreaker. Or just go to my WordPress, which is on the bottom. And you can also financially support this channel, which I don't expect it from black people. You know, the only people that's really been financially supporting this channel are white people, right? And I appreciate the whites that have been supporting this page or this channel, right? But white people have been supporting me. Black people are quick to tell me how they unsubscribe. And I just say goodbye. You know, you won't be missed. You've never donated to the channel, so goodbye, right? So for those of you who's not happy with the way things are in this country, if you are an advocate for truth and justice and fairness, whether we agree sometimes or not, feel free to click on that PayPal button and financially support this channel. Until next time, I'm fearless.